what my experience is being in satsang, and what's loosely could be spoken of as what's going on. And there seems to be two things going on. One is that the truth is being spoken in such a way that I can really listen to it, that that's who I am. But not listen from an individual, because you can't really hear it if you listen from there. So the other thing that's going on is this thing that we're calling inquiry, which, if there's any traces of an individual interfering with really listening, the inquiry sort of boots that out of the way. And I was sort of marveling at how well the inquiry, how it works. But then I was going, oh, wait a minute, what's this idea that it's something that works or maybe doesn't work? It's not something that I just sort of looking back at a bunch of misconceptions that I had about inquiry. It's not anything, it's not a path in the sense of that you're going somewhere. There's nothing to be navigated. There's it's the absence of any of that. And I guess it's best summed up in it's just the absence of imagination. And that just takes care of it all. And that's when the inquiry actually starts. If you could say it had a starting point, is when the imagination ceases. It's just...
Yes, and imagination does not cease except by inquiry. They are simultaneous. What is called inquiry in the form of practice is actually just the knowledge itself, which is of an ever-existent nature, an ever-shining nature. Because it's of such a knowledge, for one who's inquiring, for one who inquires, just as the Maharshi has instructed, for such a one, Shravana, listening, Manana, reflection, Nididhyasana, profound ongoing contemplation, and even Samadhi are all simultaneous. What is actually going on is the silent reality, which is always. That in which the so-called ego has not made the first squeak.
I was just asking myself, why do I find, or why does Ramana describe the self as being innate and natural? And it's becoming more obvious that that's the only state that I can really tolerate. Anything else is pretty, well, it's just, you'd have to go back to that imagination habit, and it's just not a good place to go. You just have to make something up to start suffering about it.
Even when in the midst of imagination, the self still is just as it is. There is no parting from the innate. If you could divide from it, it would not be the innate. It would not be of your own existence.
If I actually try to imagine right now, dividing it, it's like a foreign language trying to be spoken somewhere. It's not even understood. The idea that where would this part of formlessness get fold off and go someplace else or something. It's just really
You can only conceive of such theories only after the self has been considered an object and an individual I is considered a real entity to be a subject. But the self is not an object, and the ego is not the subject. There is only one knower, the unmixed, undivided consciousness. There is no second knower. And as you just so well expressed, inquiry rids one of the imagination. It eliminates the imagined perspective of the individual who can go this way or that way.
Oh, and it just makes it so easy.
The Maharshi's instruction is direct because it deals just with the innate from the innate. Knowing the self by the self. It is the clearest of the clear because he never includes any of the dualism, which is the imagination one is trying to get over.
There's just such a great sense of gratitude for his teaching. And I guess it was last week I was asking about humility. And I've had a misconception about humility that kind of got sorted out meditating on it through the week. My idea that humility was a well-behaved ego, one that didn't do unhumble things. And I was asking you last week, well, how can one be humble and be separate from himself? It just doesn't quite. So then you also said it's fully possible to be completely humble and there's no idea of separation. So I kind of kept working on that. That was sort of like a clue to look over there. And the deeper I inquire, the more intense the humility is and the less ego there is.
That's it.
True humility is just no ego. It's just no ego.
So when someone retains the ego notion, but is, as I say, conducting himself in a way that is more humble than the way he was, as I say, previously, it's a step in the right direction. He just needs to go further. So not only is it possible to be humble and remain without differentiation from the Absolute, not only is that possible, but it is impossible to be other than humble and abide firmly as that one Absolute. One who knows himself as the self has no trace of the idea of an ego, let alone one that's inflated. We could put it roughly like this. In practice, humility is the recognition that there is indeed the vast Brahman, the Absolute. And the ego does not count in the scope of things. When there is the recognition, not only does the ego not count, the ego does not exist, then that which was vast and absolute is regarded alone as oneself. And there is no further misidentification. Such humility, such extreme humility, absolute humility, is glorious.